Hey guys, Francis here, and just looking at the Bitcoin. So, as we say goodbye to Skype there, this was setting up, and it had this nasty little grind line in it, an ascending grind line, and there was a concern for me with this setting up so close to previous highs. So let's take it out so that everyone can just see the context of where we are. Rescale that. So that was the rally highs there, almost all time. So we had Bitcoin Tether 2973s were the highs. We had this exceedingly powerful move up, which we'll refer back to again shortly, by the way. It's no bad thing for the bullish narrative. However, the big point I wanted to make here is that this stall to run a new high here is actually underlyingly strong for Bitcoin, but it is bringing us to a scenario that I had forecast, which is very much like this. So in our premium base camp area, you would have seen something like this, a little bit more of a wind up grinding and then a dip first before we eventually go up. So this is pointing to a continuation pattern. The aggressiveness of this buy up is good. So there was some proper panic buying. It's good for the overall assessment for this eventuality. The non-run of the high here is also good. The worst thing that could have happened for bull case is to make a marginally higher high and then pull back down. That then punishes the support and resistance traders who all charge on the new high. It only goes a small bit forward and then they get smashed down. It also changes this from being a possible continuation pattern to having some potential reversal options. The fact that Bitcoin is failing live before running a high is a longer run bullish, but it means short, mini, medium term, there's a potential dip in here. So you guys can follow the news in terms of what's driving that. It's fascinating, but I like the scenarios on what's going on technically. So when we were looking at this, I was watching that grind line and I was pointing out there's still a risk here of this having a little dip to the south side, which is kind of what's happened on that. When you get this ascending grind, note these rallies were weak relative to this. And it's important to note that these sell-offs were quite hard. So it came out hard. So it was grinding up. These were the exhaustion of bulls coming up under the price action, yet there was wall of selling. You see these lower lows really squeezing there. That said, we've had a spill. Now we get a possible rally. There's always scope for a return move post the grind line being broken, and it can churn. But there is a possibility here in terms of where we're at, that we have a deeper sell-off that could see you go anywhere into even the 2224 range. That doesn't mean it has to happen. We're not saying it has to happen. We're not saying Bitcoin rush out and short Bitcoin. That isn't the game of what we're saying at all. This is getting frustrating. It won't give me the pointer, so it means everywhere I go up, I draw lines. So there could be a move down. Ideally for me, I'd prefer to see that, a reasonable dip somewhere in the 24200 range. If we don't and we churn, we could just make a more complex top here as a relative high too. So churn around for a while and then subsequently later dip. So the dip could come now or it could come later. So it could do that, or it could first churn around and then do that at a point later here. Ideally, I'd like to see it get into this lower range first. If it doesn't, and we get a very steep grind line under it, it's actually bearish. So if we have a grind line like that, what tends to happen, you get the grinding, and much like you got on the hourly, where you have the bulls keeping coming up and exhausting themselves, you eventually end up with a break of that grind line and a smash down. So that selling grind line, it's actually an ascending buy line that leads to a smash through. In other words, it just exhausts and the lean on it just crashes it through the floor there. So we could get the equivalent of that on the bigger time frame over here if we had too steep an ascending line. So I want to avoid that. Ideally, I hope that Bitcoin avoids that in its scenario that we're looking at. So that's a little bit of an update on Bitcoin. I think we are going to have this scenario potentially play out. Whoops, where we this one over here. but it would require a bit of a sell-off. You could churn around and make a complex top here before we get the dip, and then later we break out to the move to the top. Overall, it's generally quite bullish. In other words, if you have a proper consolidation period here, a lot of people get frustrated. They start sitting on the sidelines. If it sells off again, after people were hurt here with a sell-off, a lot of money then starts to sit on the sidelines. It rallies. They don't trust it. Sells off again slowly. They're very uncertain. They don't understand that technically we're drawing a continuation pattern, and then when it runs, it smashes it, and everyone has been false alarmed, you know, cried wolf on the rally here, thinking it was going to make new highs. Maybe again here, doesn't make a new high. They start to stop believing, and that's the point then eventually, third time, 3 being a magic number in technical analysis, it eventually runs. So that's my highest probability scenario cast for Bitcoin. The news flow will follow and support these ebbs and flows. So there's quite a lot coming out at the moment, and that's my take. So I hope you find it useful. This could still have a return move, by the way, to that grind line and then sell off, or as I say, just churn. But as long as we're not running the previous high on this, which is Poloniex that I'm running here at the moment, one of the highest volumes, which is why I look at it most often, but it is against Tether, not against actual USD. You will admit, and that's around about the 2973, 75 levels. We are setting up for continuation, and we should get a drift down on balance of probabilities. Also look at the previous charts where I drew this grind line here and suggested we would sell down, and we did exactly that. And we did actually make that target to the downside before that violent move. You also got inverted head and shoulders line. So look at all these key levels of significance, low 1, low 2, and then that was a low 3 as potential zones, which is why I've mentioned the 2425 and the 2520s area. This is why I'd expect this to be supporting, by the way. So this inverted setup that we got here had a funnel level here. So this is going to be a bit sticky. So just because it rallies off here, that's just because there's a bit of a support line. Doesn't mean it's going back bull and is now going to run new high. I would be quite surprised if we just supported here and then smash straight to new high. This is in a longer form continuation pattern in my view, but it will rally here because of funnel levels and even inverted head and shoulder necklines. You had another smaller time frame one in there, in that left shoulder, head and right shoulder. That's made a target. I'm not quite sure in the end whether this one did. I think it may have just we'll have to do, we should do the draw correctly. It may have just made the targets over here, which was another reason why it wasn't a bad point to be getting out of. So targets just made. There's a reason why targets are targets. You take money off the table, it's probably because you can get in a little lower at a later point, and there's a pullback on the way. So that's Bitcoin. That's my take on what I consider at this moment to be the high probability option. That doesn't mean it has to happen, and it does vary and it can change with price behavior. But generally things start tightening up after a while, and you start to get a bit more confidence as you get deeper into the pattern. Other thing to watch is also look at your volume. Remember, volume is very, very useful. So that's Francis. It's been a tricky time for Bitcoin. Lots of people getting whiplashed, big moves up, big moves down. It's got a lot to do with the news flow and the whole August and the SegWit and etc. etc. Are we forking and how are we forking, etc. etc. I find it's going to be difficult to be the first with the news there. So I prefer to watch it in the chart, but we have pushed a bit lower, and a lot of other coins that had this kind of setup that could have been up or down. I was looking at Ethereum, that's also had a push down lower. So the majors alts aren't doing well with the uncertainty on Bitcoin in general. So I don't think it's value period to chase the other alts during this period. We really like metal. And I'm watching ANTS, which is doing a return to funnel move after making its interim level. So there's a couple of opportunities there. That's a second chance. Let's show you metal. I don't want to get into too many other charts, but I'm going to be heading out for a bit and may not have too much additional time to come down and revisit that. So let's just do a quick run by metal. I haven't seen it myself this morning, but that's been exceedingly compliant to HVF structure. Let's get rid of that, make a nice big chart please. Good break, but also had this is just shows the effect. There's a correlation here. It's just shown the effect that Bitcoin is having, even on the slightly smaller cap. So I'm wondering if that's the sell-off we're getting as a result of the slight uncertainty on Bitcoin. It seems that both ants and metal have sold off slightly from their highs. We've traded at 17 there and back down at 15.8. Whether these are reacting downwards with the news flow. So it seems the Bitcoin situation is not just affecting the major alts. It could even be leaning on the smaller cap, and which shouldn't be a complete surprise to anybody. So keep an eye on that as well. So you might get opportunities to accumulate. Note that selling grind line that pointed to the next bounce up. So just showing you again, whenever you see a tactical retreat, in other words, it's not a straight up capitulation, you're getting a selling grind line. That's a beautiful second chance to funnel that. Absolutely beautiful that. And you can work on that being, give or take, your support levels, and these being the funnel revisit points. So I'll come back and do a better draw for you on that. But good opportunity to pick up metal in and around the 15s. But mainly about Bitcoin, and as you can see, a bit of a sell-off here, and that was when we were looking at the downsides, and Ethereum as well. Squeeze, and then breaking out the bottom, getting really tight and breaking out the bottom. So yeah, a little bit of risk off on crypto land. Don't be discouraged. It's going to give you the opportunity. Just don't get whiplashed in all of this churn. Don't get whiplashed in all this churn. There's more possible downside, but I think there's a little bit of a rally now because we've just hit those key levels over there on the funnel. That does not mean the selling is necessarily entirely over, because we're at key levels of significance. That's Francis giving you his take. Trade safe, trade small. Opportunities will be coming for the patient. Opportunities will be coming for the patient. Speak to you then. Enjoy. Oh, by the way, final thing is I will be available on Thursday. Those that have been battling to get calls in with me, book in for Thursday. I'm on US time at the moment, so book in for this Thursday on the website. So if you just go to the website, you'll be waiting to have a wee chat about your crypto management and learning how to trade with HVF method on your cryptos. Get in touch on the contact us there. And book in, and I will be available during Thursday. That's it from me. Speak to you all, and thanks for your attention.